The United States can defend itself against almost any country on Earth. But what if every state had to stand alone? Here are the states that could best fight off an invasion and one that simply wouldn't fall. But before we get to the states that could actually hold out, two would collapse almost immediately. Number 12. Delaware. The first and most glaring issue with Delaware is its size. It covers almost 2,500 square miles, making it the second smallest state in the entire country. At its widest point, the state is just about 35 miles across. That means a modern mechanized force could cross the entire state in a matter of hours. And the geography makes things even worse. Delaware is one of the flattest regions in North America. There are no mountain ranges, no dense forests, no swamps, and virtually no natural choke points. It's a welcome mat for an invading army. Delaware's population is just over 1 million people, ranking it among the least populated state in the U.S., and that means available manpower for defense would be extremely limited. Militarily, Delaware has very little standing combat power of its own. The state has no major active-duty U.S. Army, Navy, or Marine Corps bases within its borders. Delaware wouldn't slow an invasion, it would barely register. The next state isn't much better. Number 11. Rhode Island. Rhode Island also has a size problem, covering around 1,200 square miles. From border to border, an invading force could move across the state in well under a day. The state has a long, indented coastline dominated by Narragansett Bay, one of the largest natural harbors on the East Coast. While that geography has historically been an economic asset, from a combat point of view, it is a huge liability. The bay creates dozens of amphibious landing sites, and the surrounding low-lying coastal terrain offers few natural obstacles. When the bullets start to fly, Rhode Island brings very little to the fight. But from here on out, the picture changes. Number 10. Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania marks the transition point, not just because it's impossible to invade, but because it would be extremely hard to hold. The state's biggest strength is its central location and massive infrastructure footprint. Most of the state is shaped by the Appalachian Mountains, including long ridge and valley systems that funnel movement into predictable routes. These ridges, combined with narrow river valleys, create ready-made defensive lines, choke points, and ambush zones. Population is where Pennsylvania truly starts to separate itself from the easier targets. With a population of around 13 million people, it has plenty of manpower. Large urban cities like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh act as industrial and transportation hubs. And then there's the dozens of mid-sized cities and towns filling the interior. Pennsylvania punches well above its weight at the state level. The crown jewel is Fort Indiantown Gap, one of the largest and busiest National Guard training centers in the United States, supporting training for more than 100,000 troops a year. That makes Pennsylvania a major center for mobilization and sustained operations. But some states don't need massive bases. Their defenses are built into the ground. Number 9. Colorado. Colorado stands out as a state where terrain and strategic infrastructure gives the advantage to defenders. The Rocky Mountains dominate the western and central portions of the state. Much of Colorado sits at an elevation above 5,000 feet, with over 50 peaks exceeding 14,000 feet. The mountainous interior severely restricts large-scale movement for any opposing forces. The Colorado Springs region hosts some of the most critical command, control, and early warning infrastructure in the United States. Facilities such as Peterson Space Force Base often support critical missions, while the Cheyenne Mountain Complex remains one of the most famous hardened military facilities in the world. And then there is Fort Carson Army Base and the United States Air Force Academy, which means Colorado will have both ground and air forces at their disposal. Colorado's interior position adds another layer of defense. With no coastline and long distances to any entry point, an invading force would have to fight deep inland through rugged terrain before reaching anything that actually matters. Paired with a strong National Guard presence and a population comfortable in high-altitude terrain, Colorado gives defenders time, space, and advantages that an attacker can't easily overcome. And if you think Colorado's terrain is formidable, in this next state the people are the first line of defense. Number 8. New York. New York has a population of about 19.5 million people, making it the fourth most populous state in the United States. That concentration of people translates directly into manpower, logistical capacity, and resistance potential, which makes sense if you've ever met a New Yorker. New York's geography combines major ports, inland rivers, and rugged terrain. The Hudson River forms a natural north-south corridor that is both strategically vital and defensible. Meanwhile, regions like the Appalachian Highland and Adirondack Mountains break up movement and create defensible interior zones far from the coast. New York also has substantial in-state forces capable of immediate response. Fort Drum is home to the elements of the 10th Mountain Division, one of the U.S. Army's most combat-experienced and rapidly deployable light infantry formations. Trained for cold weather and rugged terrain, the division is tailor-made for the conditions an invader would face in New York's north and interior. But New York's true defensive nightmare for any invader is urban terrain. New York City alone contains around 300 square miles of dense urban environment. Subways, tunnels, bridges, high-rise buildings, and underground infrastructure. Urban environments like those overwhelmingly favor defenders, and in a city of this size, even a small fraction of the population resisting could tie down occupying forces. Every block becomes a choke point, every building a potential stronghold, and every transportation artery a vulnerability for an occupier. If New York is hard to take, this next state levels up and adds gators. Number 7. Florida. Florida looks easy on a map. In reality, it is an occupation nightmare. The first challenge is sheer exposure. Florida has over 1,300 miles of coastline. It's surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of America, formerly the Gulf of Mexico. This creates dozens of potential landing sites that are impossible to defend all at once, but just as hard for an attacker to control after landing. The Sunshine State is home to about 22 million people, and some of them are Florida men, and he comes packing. Florida has one of the largest civilian firearm populations in the United States, with millions of privately owned guns. While this doesn't replace organized military force, it significantly lowers the chances of occupation and pacification, especially in suburban sprawl. Militarily, Florida has MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, which is one of the most strategically important air installations in the U.S. It hosts U.S. Central Command and U.S. Special Operations Command headquarters, along with major aerial refueling and airlift units. That makes MacDill a vital logistics command and coordination hub, and a high-value, heavily protected target. And then there's the terrain that no invading force wants to deal with, the Everglades. Covering approximately 1.5 million acres, this expanse of swamps, wetlands, and sawgrass marshes is a nightmare for occupying forces. Roads are limited, visibility is poor, and the environment itself becomes the enemy. And of course, there is always the risk of being attacked by alligators. Up to this point, invasion has been difficult, but from here on out, it becomes strategically reckless. Number 6. Washington State. Washington's rugged, irregular coastline along the Pacific Ocean creates a natural barrier, while Puget Sound forms a highly defensible maritime environment. Any invading force attempting a coastal landing would immediately face numerous choke points and navigational hazards. That immediately rules out a surprise assault. Strategically, Washington is home to Joint Base Lewis McChord, JBLM, one of the largest military installations in the continental United States. JBLM hosts tens of thousands of Army and Air Force personnel, along with extensive training ranges, airlift capabilities, and rapid deployment units. It makes it a powerful hub for regional defense and for force projection. Inland Washington is far from easy terrain. The state is dominated by the Cascade and Olympic mountain ranges, which form natural defensive barriers. Combined with the state's significant National Guard presence and access to airlift and logistics through JBLM, these geographic features multiply the problems an invading force would face. And this is where the list stops being theoretical. Number 5. Virginia. At this point, the invasion stops being about terrain and starts to be about concentration. Virginia is where that becomes obvious. Geographically, the state offers layered defensive terrain. The eastern portion includes the complex Atlantic coastline, filled with estuaries, inlets, rivers, and peninsulas. Inland, the terrain rises to the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Appalachian foothills, where ridgelines, forests, and narrow valleys create natural defensive lines. Virginia's military footprint is one of the largest in the nation. The state is home to Naval Station Norfolk, the largest naval base in the world. Nearby facilities such as Langley Air Force Base, Marine Corps Base Quantico, Fort Belvoir, and Fort Gregg Adams host Army, Air Force, and Marine Corps. Good luck getting an easy victory here. Virginia packs power into a small space, but the next state spreads it across an entire continent-sized area. Number 4. California. California ranks near the top of the hardest to invade states because it combines a massive population, strategic military infrastructure, and complex terrain. The state is home to around 40 million people, making it the most populous state in the United States. This provides an enormous pool of potential defenders, both in terms of organized military personnel and civilian manpower capable of supporting resistance or insurgency. Geographically, California presents a variety of natural defenses. The state has a long coastline along the Pacific Ocean, stretching over 800 miles, punctuated by major ports including San Diego, Los Angeles, and Oakland. These are critical for both defense and supply, enabling rapid reinforcement, resupply, and power projection along the coast. Inland, the Sierra Nevada mountain range and numerous valleys create natural defensive corridors. California's military infrastructure is equally formidable. The state hosts Naval Base San Diego, the largest Navy base on the West Coast. Then there's Camp Pendleton, a major Marine Corps installation, Edwards Air Force Base, a premier test and training facility, and National Training Center at Fort Irwin, one of the largest and most advanced Army training areas in the country. These bases support thousands of combat-ready troops, aviation assets, armored units, and extensive training programs. The state's technology, energy, and manufacturing sectors provide the ability to sustain resistance, repair infrastructure, and coordinate defenses even under prolonged pressure. Combined with mountains, deserts, and coastal defenses, California becomes extremely hard to seize and nearly impossible to hold completely. The next state turns the battlefield into a war of distance and endurance. Number 3. Texas. Everything is bigger in Texas, and that causes a problem for any invasion force. With a land area of around 268,000 square miles, it is the second largest state in the United States. It is larger than France. This massive size gives defenders enormous depth, making it impossible for an invading force to quickly take over the entire state. Add in a population of over 30 million people, and Texas also provides a vast manpower pool for both organized military units and local resistance efforts. Texas is also heavily militarized. The state hosts multiple major Army and Air Force bases, including Fort Hood, Joint Base San Antonio, and Fort Bliss. These bases serve as hubs for deployment, logistics, and sustained combat operations, giving Texas the ability to defend itself, counterattack, and maintain operations deep into its territory. Additionally, Texas's interstate highways, rail networks, and energy infrastructure create internal logistical resilience, allowing defenders to move troops, equipment, and supplies efficiently across vast distances. And after Texas, invasion stops being a land problem at all. Number 2. Hawaii. Located roughly 2,400 miles from the U.S. mainland, Hawaii is completely isolated in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Any invasion would require a massive sea lift or airlift operation. That alone creates a logistical nightmare. Supply lines would be extremely vulnerable, and any delay or disruption could doom an invading force before it even reaches the islands. The state's geography places the odds on the side of the defender. Hawaii is an archipelago of islands, each with rugged volcanic terrain, steep cliffs, and limited beaches suitable for amphibious landings. Urban areas are limited and concentrated, while interior regions are mountainous and covered in dense tropical vegetation, perfect for any counterinsurgency. Enemy forces attempting to capture the islands would be funneled into narrow beachheads, making them susceptible to defensive fire, counterattacks, and attrition. Military infrastructure in Hawaii is formidable. Pearl Harbor on Oahu serves as the headquarters of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Adjacent Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam integrates air and sea power, providing both defensive and rapid response capabilities. These bases also function as critical logistics nodes, allowing defenders to quickly reinforce positions and resupply units. The presence of such hardened and well-coordinated military assets ensures that any invading force would face a highly capable and prepared defender from the very first landing. And now we reach the state that breaks every invasion model. Number 1. Alaska. At the very top of the list is Alaska, a state that combines enormous size, harsh terrain, and extreme isolation. It spans roughly 586,000 square miles, making it larger than Texas and California combined. Its interior and northern regions are dominated by Arctic and subarctic environments, including mountain ranges, glaciers, tundra, and dense forests. Winter conditions can be extreme, creating additional obstacles for any invading force. Population density is another critical factor. Alaska is home to only around 740,000 people, resulting in an average of 1.2 people per square mile, among the lowest in the United States. This sparse population means that an invader could not rely on local resources for logistics or occupation support. Roads are limited, particularly outside of urban centers, and much of the state is accessible only by air or sea. Supply lines would be long, tenuous, and highly vulnerable. The coastline further complicates any potential invasion. Alaska has over 6,600 miles of mainland coastline, creating countless potential landing sites that would require monitoring or defense. The interior and coastal islands, often rugged and difficult to navigate, provide natural defensive depth and numerous areas for defenders to stage ambushes, guerrilla operations, or counterattacks. Alaska also hosts significant military assets geared toward defense and early warning. Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson and Eielson Air Force Base support air defense, rapid deployment, and Arctic-capable units. Meanwhile, a network of early warning radar installations provides extensive surveillance of northern approaches. These facilities, combined with highly trained personnel accustomed to extreme conditions, ensure that any invading force would face well-prepared defenders in terrain that favors the home force. Now watch, this is how the US will defend the homeland from invasion, or check out countries easiest to invade.